down the sea right now. The orphans are there, the heretics. And we thought we've always been careful, but we were the ones that see the dog that her belly.
Yeah, ready whenever you are. I can do roll call.
You can. Are you all set? Shall we make a motion?
I'll probably mess it up.
Okay.
But
Okay, we're gonna, we started the meeting a little bit late because we're missing a document. It's an addendum to the general plan, EIR. The one we have really didn't print out correctly. So, but we don't need that right away, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. So, all rise and we'll open the meeting and pledge allegiance to the flag.
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, can we have a roll call, please?
I'm sorry?
We didn't hear it. I guess we didn't hear it, sorry.
Vice Chairman London,
Here.
Commissioner Hogan,
Here.
Commissioner Youngblood,
Here.
Commissioner Kelly, and Chairman Obranovich.
Here. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, our documents have arrived. Thank you, Carol. Okay, so once again, as usual, that we've been doing, this will be a meeting that is open to the public on site, and also it will be operated by Zoom. So as in the past, if, at the appropriate time, if you have any questions, use the raise your hand feature, and you'll be acknowledged and asked to go ahead and, state your comment. And when you do that, just remember you have to hit the unmute button, otherwise we won't be hearing you, okay? Thank you. So the first thing we want to do, item tonight, is for public comment for items not on tonight's agenda. So if anybody has anything they want to bring up that's not on the agenda, please go ahead and state your name and speak. So I don't see anybody in-house. Do we have anybody on Zoom, Mary Beth?
Pam Blake, you may speak.
Go ahead, Pam. Are you unmuted?
Now can you hear me?
There you are.
There you go.
Okay. Pam Blake, I've made this statement numerous times at the town council meetings, the general plan public meeting, the town council, the planning commission last Tuesday, to remind you of the mission statement of the town of Loomis, which is number 1, a quality of life in which families can grow and enjoy the small town atmosphere. And then number 5 is a plan that calls for slow quality growth. I did look at, I just want to bring that up again. There's a lot of us old timers here, and we're not going anywhere, and we all have concerns on the small town atmosphere and the quality of life with slow quality growth. So thank you very much. I was there last Tuesday in person, but I'm not able to be there today in person. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pam. Anybody else?
No, sir.
Okay, so we're going to close public comment for items not on the agenda. Next, we'll need a motion to adopt tonight's agenda. Any discussion from planning commissioners about the agenda? If not, we'll have a motion, please.
I second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Youngblood,
Aye.
Commissioner London,
Yes.
Commissioner Hogan,
Yes.
Chairman Obranovich.
Yes. Okay, and also just to kind of remind everybody, this is an extra meeting, so it's not a regular meeting in the sense that we would have minutes from the last meeting and some of the other items that we typically have. So the first item here is going to be, what we're going to do tonight, we need to approve the draft 2021-2029 housing element and addendum as amended. So we're not really going to review the entire document again, just the changes. And staff report will kind of highlight, what's going on with that. But basically, we're sort of still in the process, even though we approved not the amendment, the housing element back in May. It went out to the council for approval and then to HUD for review. They submitted comments. We had to address those comments, and then now that's where we're at now, is we're going to go ahead and review the revisions and make that approval of that and forward that to the council, and then they will go ahead and turn around and forward that back to HUD, and that is due, their final due is September 10th. But we do have to kind of get this rolling tonight. We really don't have that much time to do this. So I guess that just giving a little bit of a prelude, and I know Mary Beth will kind of augment this, but a lot of those items that we're going to discuss tonight and want to focus on the draft EIR, on the last copy, there's a page and it was V121, and it was a section that was highlighted in yellow. And that's kind of the essence, I guess, if I can kind of summarize it, of what we're really going to focus on tonight. Also, those who attended the workshop on the end of July 20th, it was a Wednesday night, and it was a dual meeting between the town council and the planning commission and PlaceWorks, and that's the meeting that really was kind of the meat of what we're really discussing tonight and what we're going to approve. Okay, so with that, Mary Beth, I'll turn that over to you for staff report, and we'll go ahead into discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Greg gave a great synopsis of what we're here for tonight. In addition to the posted agenda, there was an additional iteration of the 2021-2029 housing element that was released yesterday with just a couple of minor corrections, two to be specific. Program 9, beginning on page V120, line 5, did not have, it was not formatted properly to include the chapter numbers, so that was corrected. And then there was also a new bullet item added to program 7, item number G, regarding additional density bonus incentives. And then there's one additional one that we'll discuss tonight, but it's very minor. It's just a Colfax versus Loomis matter. So we're used to seeing Jennifer Gastelum and Cynthia Walsh. They are both unavailable tonight, but we have some expert lead staff in their honor, Lucy Rollins and Mark Teague. We also have Amy Sinsheimer to answer any housing-related questions and things like that come up. So at this time, I'd like to begin the PowerPoint presentation by Lucy Rollins. Thank you, Lucy.
Hi. Does this work? Everyone can hear me? Great.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. So tonight, we're going to go over the housing element, any revisions that were made since we sent it to HCD. Most of them are minor, a couple are a little bit larger. We'll walk through those and the schedule for tonight. So if we could go ahead and start, and that's the agenda. So a quick overview for those who may not be familiar, maybe on Zoom or elsewhere. The housing element is one of the 8 mandated sections of the general plan. And so the town is required to update it every 8 years. It includes an assessment of existing conditions, projects future conditions, analyzes land availability. It identifies specific sites for future housing that you'd like to prioritize, evaluates previous programs, and we adjust them for the future of the town and what we need to do to meet the housing needs of what you want and what the state mandates. Our time frame for this is the 2021-2029 housing element update. You're currently on an 8-year schedule. The required adoption date was May 15th, 2021. We are within the 120-day grace period, but are fast approaching that deadline of September 10th. Next slide, please. So our outreach overview over the course of the housing element update process started last November. We held 2 open houses. Many of you may have attended that. We had about 40 members of the public attend. We went over the whole general plan as well as specifics of the housing element. We contacted 10 service providers and spoke with 6 of them that responded. This included fair housing providers, legal service, senior centers, things like that. We did a community housing survey that had amazing results. We got 200 plus responses, which is great. And then we met with the housing committee 4 times. So scheduled, that September 10th date comes up again, and this is the deadline. If we do not adopt the housing element by that time, you will have to go into a 4-year update schedule, which means repeating this whole process again at least 2 more times within the 4-year periods. So next slide, please. So this we went over, we've gone over a couple times, but we'll reiterate it for everyone. The HCD wanted to see some minor changes, updates to the language. So we updated the public participation section to really expand on what you've done. The town has been really proactive in forming these committees, doing the survey, social pinpoint, and so we really emphasized those points within the housing element. We updated the needs assessment to add survey responses specific to housing conditions, as well as the quantified entities to acquire affordable units. So updating what we really need to see. The assessment of fair housing was a new section to your housing element this time, required under AB 686, and the state wanted to see some really detailed analysis of distribution of demographics throughout the town. So we dug in at the block group level to see where there are more owners, more renters, information like that, and presented that to them. We analyzed the time between entitlement and building permit to see if that's a constraint on development. And we updated the programs to add metrics to the fair housing programs, which really just meant adding time frames. So when would the town try to complete these by? So those were the original ones that we submitted to HCD, and they reviewed, they approved, but then they did give us a findings letter, which, Mary Beth, next slide, please. We'll go through those. Those are the new ones at this point. So I'll go through each of them one by one. The comment was infrastructure. The state wanted us to show that the sites we were identifying in the housing element are within service proximity for water and sewer. So we just stated that it is the case. Most of our sites are north of I-80 at what is known as the village property, and there is water and sewer service there that they can plug into. So that was our response. Next, please. The next was the large sites. So that village site, we have Site 8 is 7 acres with a high-density overlay, and the state has identified that as floating on the larger 28-acre site, and the town does have a specific spot on that site that they would like to see it happen, and so we're going to have the land use committees follow up and really nail down that language in the land use element to identify where that is. So we added Program 10 to clarify that for them. Next slide. So the next is realistic capacity. So originally we'd identified 100% capacity on those 7 acres for the affordable units, and the state doesn't believe that was realistic. So we did further analysis of projects that have occurred within Loomis and in the surrounding Placer County region and determined that approximately 80% realistic capacity is appropriate. And what that means is that if a site allows 24 units, it won't actually build out at 24 units. We have to allow for setbacks, open space, things like that. So we're assuming that it will build out at 80% capacity. So we presented these examples as backing for that. So the next one was we had to demonstrate the sites identified for both lower income, moderate, and above moderate. We're going to affirmatively further fair housing, which basically means that we're not going to segregate uses. So we're not going to have all of our affordable units in one area, all of our luxury housing in another. And so that kind of raised the issue with having all of the sites on the village property, which we've remediated by we're going to look for other sites. But we added that analysis by dropping it down to 80% capacity and identifying more land. You will be able to have more affordable units throughout the town. You have sites identified throughout. So we just presented that to them to clarify that point. And then we have the sites inventory, the shortfall. So this is where, because we dropped down to 80% realistic capacity on the high-density overlay site, there's a 35-unit shortfall. And rather than identify the land for that right now, the town has decided to put a Program 10 in, which will give you 3 years to identify and rezone land, and that can go to the land use committees to help with that process in the coming months. So where does that leave us? Our land inventory has not changed significantly other than this shortfall, which you can see in the red there, which will be resolved by Program 10. We have 3 years to rezone sites to meet that, and so you have surplus in all other areas, which is great. So the addendum to the general plan EIR, because we are not rezoning any sites at this time, that's not going to be included, and it's just an addendum to it, and it's fairly minor. So the impacts are addressed by the town's policies. As you review the housing element, we have several policies in place to make sure that development does not negatively impact the town in any way. So just to reiterate, tonight really is the night. We need to move this forward to ensure that you don't have to go on a 4-year schedule. So if you have any questions, I think this is our last slide. I'd be happy to answer them.
So I guess I need to ask, is the addendum to the general plan environmental impact report a part of? That's more to do with the general plan, not the housing element. So we're really talking about two different things here.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Mark Teague. I'm with PlaceWorks. I manage the CEQA division of the firm, and I'm here tonight to help with this process. The addendum is necessary because you are taking a discretionary action to update your general plan by adopting the housing element. Because we're having to do this ahead of the rest of the general plan, which will have its own EIR, we're going to do an addendum to your existing general plan EIR in order to allow you to take the action on the housing element this evening. So this is two separate processes, one of which is the addendum for your housing element, which is separate and distinct from the general plan because we need to accelerate it in order to keep on the timeline.
Right. So this evening we'll have two different motions, one for the housing element, one for the EIR to the general plan update.
The addendum, yes, sir.
The addendum, right?
If it pleased the chair, I would prefer you do the addendum first.
Okay. To the EIR? Okay.
Because as I believe it's listed the other way,
it is.
motions on the agenda.
And why is that?
Because under California law, you need to consider the environmental impacts of your action prior to taking the action. It's a little hard to suggest that you did that when you adopt it afterwards.
Okay.
I know I'm being pedantic, but
No,
let's not leave low-hanging fruit for somebody to throw rocks at the town.
I don't, that's why you're here.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay. So you're done. So any questions of Lucy from Planning Commission or on the presentation this evening? No? You're thinking, Michael, looks like.
The addendum is an addendum to the existing EIR?
Correct.
Okay. Not the EIR that's being done for the general plan?
Right.
Okay.
To the existing.
I think we had that in
Okay. So it's,
got it now.
okay.
So I have a question. So as far as the demographics portion, in the other packet we received a couple weeks ago, are we also approving that as well tonight, or do we have discussion on that? Or are we just the basis of, and we'll go back and go over the
demographics portion,
which is basically the racial portion and the other demographics
this
and
part
all
of the
that?
assessment of fair housing?
Yes.
Yes, so that is part of the housing element, so that's part of the discussion tonight.
Okay. Because you guys didn't touch on that at all on the presentation, so that's why I was a bit confused.
The additions, Mary Beth, if you can pull up the slides, one of them was the earlier revisions. They wanted us to analyze. When I was saying we went down to the block group level, and we looked at the north side of town versus the south side across the freeway, we were looking at income distribution, so if there are any concentrated areas of affluence specifically, and whether those are tied to any areas that might have a dominance of white population or minorities. So we looked at that. We didn't find any tracks that identified that. There are areas that have, a higher percentage of African Americans. However, the town is so small that it doesn't.
So can I elaborate a little bit on that?
Absolutely.
So
please.
first and foremost, I did read through this quite with a fine-tooth comb. And the part where you talk about Sierra College, you have to keep in mind, and I know the state probably doesn't hone in on this because it's state level, this is local and county level. Sierra College, the college is technically in Rockland. It's not Loomis. Sierra College has two sides to it. Part of it is Loomis, and part of it is Rockland.
Yes.
Okay. A lot, and as you know, I mean, people that go to college, you know, there's sports and things like that. Okay. So a lot of the people that are in here are staying in the dorms, or they're staying in Rockland. So,
We
and
only
the other
looked at
thing,
housing units that are
Okay.
within the town
but
limits.
another thing I want to specify too, because like I think Pam Blake mentioned this, we are a small town. We want to keep things kind of the same. There in the past there have been different demographics that have lived here. They've left for whatever reason. I just want to say that that's kind of a thing here, that we're not against diversity. We have a lot of different aspects of that. So as far as the state, who really doesn't come in and thoroughly check out Loomis, they're comparing us against a lot of other cities, larger cities. We're a small town, and I just want to kind of put that out there, that it's not a one-size-fits-all type.
Absolutely.
So if you can take that into consideration as well,
Yes.
that we're a small town.
Yes. And there is one sentence in there that I was discussing with the state, that especially a town this size, that if you have 14% of the population that identifies a certain way, that could be one family if you're living in a very rural area. So that a new family in, a new family out doesn't mean that there's a large change in diversity. It's just people moving around.
Or they leave.
Or they leave.
If we shouldn't
Absolutely.
be, I don't want to say this, but we shouldn't be penalized because people move in and they decide to leave for whatever reason.
And so maybe there's a misunderstanding there. The Fair Housing Assessment doesn't identify it. We're identifying the facts that exist, but there are no negative consequences. There's nothing that's in place that says the town has to change a demographic makeup or anything like that. It's just identifying what exists. And we found that really it's just housing. It's not the people. It's making sure that there's housing for the people that live here and the people that work here to be able to stay.
Cool. Just wanted to kind of put
Absolutely,
that out.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Appreciate that.
clarifying, yeah.
You're welcome.
Okay, great, thanks. All right. Okay, I guess if,
I have one.
yeah, go ahead.
I was a little, I found the block level information a little confusing or contradictory, just because I'm wondering if part of it has to do with, in south of 80, there's, just a lot of rural land, and so there's not much density.
Yeah.
And so you can have my observation just driving around is there's, multi-million-dollar homes, and then you have some that, they clearly have been here for a very long time and, are just struggling to make ends meet and to keep, holding on to their homes. And then to see, though, that, it seemed like concentrated wealth was over in Sunrise Park, and so that's where we actually call out to encourage ADU production there. And yet the problem with that is that that's actually, a majority of the homes are only on quarter-acre lots, as opposed to, along King Road, you've got, 2.25, 4.6 acre lots. And so instead of just calling out Sunrise Park, it seemed that maybe if we could just kind of put more of the general area, just again to try to focus the ADU production in these, again, smaller lot size, didn't make much sense to me.
So the nice thing is as the town, you have the discretion of where you want to promote ADU development. And so the state suggests that you identify areas that are considered high resource and high opportunity. If the definition of an area that says it's got this income or this, you disagree, there's more opportunity, there's more land that exists in another part of town, that's a high opportunity area in your book, and you can promote the ADUs there.
Okay,
So you do have that discretion to where you think it fits best, where there are more homeowners that are interested. And like we've said, every ADU you build will count towards your housing inventory.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is why I really want us to
Yeah.
focus on the ADUs. But I think in that program, they specifically call out Sunrise Park, and so I was hoping just to kind of make the language a little bit more opening to include the areas around Sunrise Park, because everywhere around Sunrise Park, there's large lots with acreage. Sunrise Park itself is small lots, so that's the only thing.
Do you think the language is focusing on a certain area?
So, yeah, it was page V52, line 35 to 37.
V52. What's,
in line 35 to 37, and it just said that the concentrated higher income in the Sunrise Park neighborhood and south of 80 encourage construction of ADUs in these areas, particularly south of 80, where residents have larger properties. But in terms of Sunrise Park, just along King Road itself, because
Within the program, I believe it does not specify Sunrise Park,
Okay.
so it focuses on that high resource or high opportunity, which is that wiggle room.
okay,
Yeah.
great. Thank you.
yeah, I think it's pretty clear that it's kind of also emphasizing or including larger lots that would be more probable to have that happen.
Yeah, because I mean, that's a huge
That's where
benefit
it's
that we
gonna
have,
happen.
right?
Yeah, okay. Okay. All right, any other questions from Planning Commission? And okay, then I think next we'll open it to public comment. So, anybody? Yes. Thank you, Lucy.
David Ring, 3486 Delmar. I just had a quick question. Is the EIR addendum, does that count as one of our 4 amendments to the general plan then when we do it? Yes. Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay.
The housing element adoption counts, not the EIR. That's the housing.
But they're 2 separate things, right?
And Mark can correct me if I'm wrong. The addendum, you can addend your EIR anytime you want, but the housing element is one of your 4 general plan amendments that you can have a year.
And then we're going to do that again when we adopt the entire year. And that's
Correct.
all going to be within one,
We will create a brand new EIR.
but I mean, that's all going to be within 1 year, right? Are we going to,
It could be.
so then we'll be on 2 then after that.
Then we'll have 2 after that,
Okay.
correct?
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Are there any public members on Zoom that wish to ask a question or provide a comment? If so, just raise your hand. Sonia, you may proceed, just unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Last week I came to the Planning Commission meeting and I provided copies to all of the planning commissioners regarding the article from the Orange County Register. And it was pertaining to Orange County cities suing the state over erroneous home building goals. And I've talked to, since then, a couple of the electeds in our town, and they have concerns about the numbers that the state is giving to us. And I know there's a deadline, September 10th, coming up really quickly, and that you guys are trying to meet that deadline. But I'm just wondering, in the future, how will it work? Will we be able to, after this is approved and passed and gone to the state, will we have the opportunity to appeal these numbers, because they just don't make any sense. They don't add up. And so I'm just wondering, will we be able to appeal to the state after that?
So for the 6th cycle RENA, RENA is the Regional Housing Needs Allocation. Those are those numbers that the state has given the town on what you need to find land for. The opportunity to appeal those has come and gone. That was at the beginning of the housing element process. However, when the next housing element process comes up in 8 years, there will be another Regional Housing Needs Allocation. And at that time, if the town feels that the numbers are not appropriate, they can have that, they can appeal that process then.
And if I understand correctly, I mean, it's not the Orange County jurisdictions that's taking HCD to court over the calculations of those numbers. It's actually the Transportation Authority. And if I understand correctly too, SACOG actually calculated our numbers differently than what SCAG
Correct.
did, and SCAG would actually like theirs calculated as ours was through SACOG.
Correct.
Okay.
So SACOG does their own process. Each Council of Governments completes it differently. So the process that Southern California took, you're absolutely right, is different than what the methodology they used here.
Okay. All right, thank you. Anybody else, Mary Beth?
Thank you.
No? Okay. Okay, all right, so we'll go ahead and bring it back to the Planning Commission now. And so what we're going to do is just discuss item number 2. And the recommendation is that we adopt the addendum to the General Plan Environmental Impact Report, et cetera. So if there's any discussion on that, we'll have that now. Otherwise, we'll have a motion. Okay? You
I request that we have a 10-minute break because I think I'd like to go through it a little bit more closely because.
I second that.
Right.
Oh, okay, sure. We're going to take a break so we can review that document for about 10 minutes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I just feel.
Sure. Okay. Sorry, I hit my button. It was confusing to us, and so we wanted some more clarification before we moved ahead with the vote, and Mark's been helping us. So I want him to share that with the public, you know, what he kind of gleaned from our concerns, because I can only assume that other people might have the same questions.
Absolutely. And I want to apologize because planners tend to lapse into CEQA speak. And so if I use an acronym and you don't know what it is, please call me on it. When the town adopted its general plan, the current one that we're operating under, they also certified an environmental impact report. That's abbreviated as EIR, and you will see that in various places. The environmental impact report evaluated all the potential physical changes resulting from a operation or implementation of your general plan. So that would be land use, circulation, noise, all of those things that include policies, objectives, and goals within your current general plan were evaluated for their potential to impact the environment. And from that, mitigation or changes to the plan were brought forth to make that acceptable. What we use is a phrase called reduced to lower than significant or less than significant level. The document before you this evening allows you to extend the coverage, if you will, of that general plan EIR that you currently have to cover this document. Now, the reason that we can do that is that there are no changes in your housing element this evening that are significantly different, or in my world, significant is a key trigger word for environmental. There's no significant change between your current housing element and the proposed housing element. Now, before everybody gets excited, yes, I know there's a policy there and you have this RENA number that's massive. But remember, the RENA number is looking at your existing land use designations. These are designations that are already on the ground. They're simply being called out specifically in the housing element because of their density to allow different income levels. So from an environmental impact standpoint, we don't care. It says you can do housing now, you're going to do housing later. There's no change in the environmental process evaluates change. So if we fast forward to that policy that talks about needing to find additional land for your RENA, that 35 units or more, so that you have a little bit of a buffer, that you have 3 years to do, and that will be addressed in the broader general plan discussion that is ongoing and still in its infancy, and that will be covered by its own EIR, a brand new EIR. So in essence, this is a small rider on your current insurance policy to allow you to do additional things. And the bigger lift, the heavier item, and the discussions will be on where that additional land will be redesignated, along with all of the other myriad of changes that are likely to come out of your general plan update. Be that new roads or trails or parks, those sorts of things, will all be evaluated in the EIR for the general plan. What you have before you this evening doesn't actually change anything that you have in your town. The land uses that are called out are already on the ground. There's no change. And so from an environmental impact standpoint, there's nothing to evaluate. And what you have before you is an addendum under 15164 of the California Environmental Quality Items that says there's no big changes here, and we're allowed to continue.
Okay.
I apologize that it is in legal speak, and for that I blame the lawyers. Sorry, Andreas. But at the end of the day, this is something the town is able to do and has done several times over the course of implementing its general plan for minor changes here and there. Happy to answer any questions you or the public may have on that.
Any other questions? Okay, great. Yeah, that was very helpful, and you're right. It has to be presented in this form. I understand that, but but we do need to also go through the process of how can I say this in a nice way, but lowering it down to a level that, you know, even planning commissioners, and we can get a little techie sometimes, but this is a lot.
In the cupcakes of life, this is the paper lining for the cupcake.
Yeah.
And so planners tend to just discard it, but I do understand.
But we want to bring everybody along. So, okay, great. Well, thank you. So I'm going to open it up to public comment, and so somebody might have another question. Go ahead. And this public comment is for the EIR aspect, the addendum of the meeting tonight.
Dave Green again. Just wondering, why is this coming up now when we already approved a housing element that we already sent to the state? But now we're re-examining did the state ask us to do this? Or is this something that we forgot to do initially? Or is this something that we should have done beforehand? I mean, why is it now that we're adding this addendum instead of 3 months ago?
Good question. Okay.
Yeah, so what was reviewed before it went to HCD was a draft. It went to HCD. They gave a conditional compliance with the findings letter. So if you change these things and then adopt it, they would consider it for actual compliance. So that the EIR goes with the adoption draft, not the public draft. It was sent to HCD.
So it wasn't necessary before?
It wasn't necessary before. It was still in progress before, as was the draft of the housing element, and now they are both up for adoption.
So if it would have got accepted by the state,
so the state, what happened?
Would have had to adopt it.
Yeah. So the question was if the state had accepted it. So what happened before with HCD is they were doing an initial review to send us comments, revisions, things like that. So for the final 90-day compliance review, which happens after adoption, that's when it comes. So even if they'd come back after the 60-day and said everything looks good, you would still have to adopt with the EIR at the same time after their first review.
I'm still, is it still 3 minutes? It's just still very weird that, so what he said was we need to do this first because we need to show that we took the environmental impacts into account, and yet we're still doing it after the draft. It's just very weird.
Perhaps I can enlighten you. The action taken by the town in May was to submit it to HCD. It wasn't to adopt it.
Okay.
It was a draft document. But per the regulations, we have to we have to have it before a public meeting before it can be submitted to the state. So no environmental action was necessary at that time because it wasn't being formally adopted.
So we still would have had to adopt the housing element even after we sent it to the HCD and they would have sent it back and said, everything is great, you look good. We still would have had to have said, yes, now we're going to adopt it.
Perfect.
And before we adopt it, we're going to do the EIR. Okay.
Perfect. You have it. Perfect.
Okay, thanks. Any other?
I've just got another quick addition to what Mark already said and what Lucy said to David's comment, and that is that with the changes we've made based on what HCD requested, we would have had to change our environmental analysis if we had done it on the preliminary draft. So that's why the environmental analysis would have been premature back when we first sent the first draft to HCD.
Great. So good to know we did it in the right order, basically. Okay, so we have another person here.
Yes, my name is Dave Daly. I live at 3815 Delmar Avenue. We were told that we're 35 units short for our ERR. If you're putting all the units of the village, how many units are you setting a lot of for inside the village? You're setting 60 units inside the village or what? 140? So if you take the 140 that you're saying that's going to go in the village, right, in the 30 that we're short, there's no way we're short 30. We're short 170. If you do the math, you just can't throw everything inside the village. It's never going to work. We've been under the assumption that we're short 35 units. We're not short 35 units. We're short over 140 units, we just said. So it's not the 30 units we're short, because you can't shove everything in the village. It'll never work.
Okay,
Nobody's going to want to build there.
There's going to be other lands that are going to be rezoned to.
I know.
For opportunity, okay.
But the last couple of meetings, everybody's been telling us that we're only short 35 units to meet our thing for the low income. We're not short 30. You're putting everything into the village without anybody even knowing it. We're not short 30. We're short over 100 units in reality. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any other public comment?
Sonia Coupler, you may unmute.
Are you unmuted, Sonia? Doesn't look like it.
Sonia, are you good out there? I saw your hand up, so. There we go. Okay, now just unmute. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. There was a glitch. I didn't have my hand up. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you. Okay. Okay, so looks like we're good for public comment. So we're going to close public comment.
If I may,
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
wanted to respond to Dave's comment to clarify, hopefully clarify what's going on. So
Sure.
we have, your regional housing needs allocation is 352 units. That is not all on the village site. So there are several sites that have been identified throughout the town of Loomis. The village site has been identified for 140 of the lower income units, which would be high density. However, there are other sites for moderate and above moderate that accommodate the rest of those 352. So what we're saying is the shortfall is only the 35 units of lower income high density unit that we need to find additional land for.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and, unless there's other discussion from Planning Commission, we'll go ahead. There's one more. Well, sir, we usually have one person, one shot at public comment. It's not a free-for-all. I know it's frustrating. I'm sorry. Yep. No, it's not. Nope. Sir, public comment is comment that's given, and we don't always necessarily respond to it. That's a courtesy. We try to do that when we can. If we had allowed everybody to come up as things appear, it would be ongoing all night long, and those are the rules. Sorry. Okay, and your comment also, we're very generous, and that it really had nothing to do with the EAR. So you really spoke out of context. So, okay. So we're done with that, and we're going to bring it back to the Planning Commission, and we'll try to have a vote.
I move to adopt the EIR addendum.
We need a second. Yeah.
I second.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Okay, Commissioner Youngblood,
Yes.
Commissioner London,
Yes.
Commissioner Hogan,
Yes.
Chairman O'Branovich.
Yes. Okay, great. We got through that. Thank you. So now we're going to move on to the next item, which is to go ahead and read it here. Is it? Okay, the recommendation is that Town Council approve a general plan amendment adopting the Town of Loomis 2021-2029 housing element as amended. And I think that also includes the revisions that were mentioned during staff report. Okay, number 1 and 2 is a floor manning on program 9 fixed to add the program number. And then number 2 is a new bullet added to program 7 for town council recommendation. Okay, so with that, it is to the council or to the planning commission for any further discussion and then a vote, a motion rather. Okay.
David Ring always gets me thinking.
That's
Okay.
that's what he's here for.
So we're amending our existing general plan. How many amendments have we had?
Zero.
No, this is for the housing element, Mike.
This is yeah.
Recommend that the town council approve a general plan amendment adopting the housing element. So it's the existing general plan we're talking about. We have had no amendments yet. So we're using up one of our 4. And our schedule for completing the new general plan is,
Adoption next year, probably in the spring.
okay. So we got plenty of amendments in our back pocket still. But it was a very good point, David. That clarifies it for me. I want to make sure we leave our options open in case other business comes before us that needs an amendment. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so we need a motion.
Wait a second, I gotta read it.
We're getting there.
Here we go.
Roll call, or
So
drum roll.
I recommend that we approve recommend to the town council that the general plan amendment be approved, adopting the Loomis 2129 housing element. Did I get it right?
As amended.
As amended.
As amended. Now I've got it.
With the attached revisions.
With the attached revisions.
Okay, we're good now.
And I second that.
Roll call, please. Yes, Bonnie did.
Commissioner Youngblood,
Yes.
Commissioner London,
Yes.
Commissioner Hogan,
Yes.
Chairman Obranovich.
Yes. Great, thank you. Okay, I think our business is done this evening. And we do not, unless Planning Commission have any additional items? It's not on our agenda, so we really won't.
No,
Okay.
but just a reminder to what Mark had said that, again, those 35 units will be decided in the land use committees, and so it's going to be really important for people to be involved in paying attention to that.
Okay, and I guess the next meeting would be, well, there's a land use committee that doesn't really involve us. That's August 12th. Next Planning Commission meeting is August 24th. Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody. Good night.